Ye servants of God, your Master proclaim, and publish abroad his wonderful name, the name all victorious of Jesus extol. His kingdom is glorious, he rules over all.
Welcome to Truth for the World. We're continuing a series of lessons called The Portraits of Christ. And in this series of lessons, we're seeing all kinds of attributes and characteristics and actions of Jesus. And we're examining them closer so that perhaps we can learn more about him and his life. And of course, when we do that, we learn a perfect example that Jesus left for us so that we might try to follow in his footsteps. We're doing this by looking at each chapter of the book of John. If you notice each chapter in the book of John, you can pull out a portrait or an image of Christ from each chapter. And in this particular lesson, we're going to talk about suffering. The model sufferer is Jesus the Christ. And we're looking at John chapter 18. If you have your Bibles, why don't you open to John chapter 18 and join us in this particular lesson. We're going to look at Jesus again as the model sufferer. Before we get into our main points, we're going to read a few verses from John chapter 18. So if you have your Bibles, let's turn over to John chapter 18 and verse 1, and then we'll be going through verse 11. Let's start reading in John 18:1. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Kedron, where was a garden, into the which he entered and his disciples. And Judas also which betrayed him knew the place, for Jesus ofttimes resorted thither with his disciples. And Judas then, having received a band of men of officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus saith unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with him. As soon then as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Then asked he them again, Whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore ye seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spake, Of them which thou gavest me have I lost none. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it, and smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then said Jesus unto Peter, Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? The powerful Jesus here, and by powerful we know he is because he has performed miracles up to this point. He's healed the sick. He's walked on water. He's told the sea, the winds, and the waves to be still. He's even shown that he has the power over death by raising Lazarus from the dead. And now he's been betrayed by Judas. He's about to be arrested. And if you think about it, he doesn't have to be. He could resist. He could use miraculous power to subdue his would-be captors. But instead, he submits. He turns himself over. As a matter of fact, they come looking and he says, Who are you looking for? Whom seek ye? And they say, well, we're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. And he comes right out and admits it. I am he. He lets them know, I'm the one you're looking for. Jesus is willing to submit to the will of the Father because this was the plan all along, that Jesus would be crucified after living a perfect life, a sinless life, and he would be offered as the perfect sacrifice to pay the penalty for our sin. The penalty for sin is death or separation. Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death. And when mankind sinned, they were separated from Jesus, or from God spiritually. They had suffered spiritual death. A perfect man had sinned in the Garden of Eden, and now a perfect man needed to be substituted and replaced and offered as a sacrifice. And Jesus lived a perfect life and was willing to do that. He was willing to die on the cross even though he didn't deserve that crucifixion and that punishment. But he was willing to submit to the Father in order that the salvation opportunity would be given to mankind and the will of the Father would be carried out. So this is why we talk about Jesus as the model sufferer. He is willing to suffer in order to achieve the will of the Father. Now, in the verses that we just looked at, Jesus uses a phrase that may be somewhat unfamiliar to us. In particular, he says, "The cup that my Father has given to me, shall I not drink it?" What is he talking about? He's talking about a cup of suffering. And he's using this figurative kind of language to talk about the suffering that he's about to go through, the torture, the scourging, the crucifixion that he's about to endure. A cup is used to portray a container of intangible things. Jesus is perhaps using some figurative language here by saying, almost as if the Father is handing him a cup and saying, drink this in and take it in. Only instead of it being full of water or whatever, it's actually a cup filled with suffering. There's all sorts of suffering, torture, and abuse that's coming. And Jesus uses this figurative language almost to say, it's as if the Father is just handing me a whole load of something. We might say in our language today, a whole load of something that's placed on my back. You know, your boss gives you a whole bunch of projects to work on at one time. And we even say, I've got a huge load on my back. Well, you don't literally have a huge load on your back unless maybe your boss is making you carry cotton bales. But you have a load on your back figuratively. It's as if your boss has given you a huge load to bear. Well, instead of saying a load on my back or something like that, Jesus used the word cup as if all these sufferings were in a cup and the Father was giving it to him and saying, here, drink this, partake of this, endure all these sufferings. If we look in the Bible, we see that this figurative language is used, that a cup is sometimes used to describe as holding intangible things. And by intangible, of course, we're talking about things you can't really touch or taste or feel. In John chapter 18, let's read verse 11. John 18:11. Then said Jesus unto Peter, Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? This is the verse we just looked at. And again, he's saying the cup of my Father. He's talking about a cup holding all those sufferings. But we also see it over in Matthew. If you look at Matthew chapter 20, let's read verses 20 through 23. Matthew 20, 20 through 23. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, What wilt thou? She saith unto him, Grant that these my two sons may sit, the one on thy right hand, and the other on the left, in thy kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, You know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They say unto him, We are able. And he saith unto them, Ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. Once again, Jesus uses this idea of, can you partake of the cup that I'm going to partake of? Well, he's probably not really talking about a literal cup. It's not really a hard challenge to say, drink out of the same cup that I'm drinking out of. That's pretty easy. What he's really talking about is, are you able to go through all these things that I'm going to have to go through? I'm going to have to partake of all these sufferings, and I'm going to have to partake of all these different tribulations. Are you able to partake of those too? Are you willing to take that all in and drink it in? In Revelation, we also see chapter 14 and verse 10, where again the cup is used to portray as a container of intangible things. Let's look at Revelation 14 and verse 10. If we turn over there, you also hear about God's wrath. And that wrath is sometimes discussed as being poured out. In Revelation 14:10, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out with mixture into the cup of his indignation. Well, again, we're talking figurative here. You don't have a literal cup of wrath. You don't have a literal cup of indignation. Those are emotions, and those are terms that are intangible. But it's just showing you that this is figurative language that's sometimes used, that the cup is used to portray to be a container of intangible things. And that's what Jesus is talking about here when he talks about the cup of suffering. But let's move on to the main point. I think we've covered that enough. The next main point is Jesus accepted the cup of suffering on behalf of the Father. Jesus accepted that cup of suffering on behalf of the Father. Let's look at Matthew 26, starting in verse 38. Matthew 26:38. Then saith he unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here, and watch with me. And he went a little further, and fell on his face, and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And he cometh unto the disciples, and findeth them asleep, and saith unto Peter, What, could ye not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again the second time, and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. Well, you see the same type of terminology here. Jesus is praying that the cup not have to come to him. And we know what he's talking about, don't we? The cup of suffering. This very same cup of suffering that he mentions later when the guards come to arrest him. He is asking, let this cup pass from me. You know, I would prefer not to drink it. And who can blame him? Who would want to be scourged and tortured and crucified? It was a horribly painful way to die. And Jesus knows it. And Jesus is facing that very thing. But the conflict is, the will of the Father wants him to go through with this in order that a perfect sacrifice will be given on behalf of mankind. Jesus wants to do the will of the Father, but he wants to do it in some other way if it's at all possible, because he knows how painful and horrible it's going to be. But he prays, let this cup pass from me. But notice he always says, not as I want, but as you want. Not as I wilt, but as thou wilt. This is, Jesus was willing to accept that cup of suffering on behalf of the Father. In John 13, let's read verses 13 through 16. John chapter 13, 13 through 16. Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. Well, what's that have to do with what we're talking about? It shows the servant attitude that Jesus had. I'm not greater than the Father who sent me, so I'm going to submit my will to the will of the Father. This is why we're looking at Jesus as the model sufferer. If suffering is what it takes to get the job done, then so be it. That's the attitude of Jesus. If suffering is what I have to go through in order to accomplish the will of the Father and please Him, then so be it. Jesus was willing to drink of that cup of suffering. In John 15, let's read verse 13. John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And did not Jesus demonstrate that greater love by dying on the cross for all mankind? Jesus accepted that cup of suffering, and He did it on behalf of the Father. Now, the cup of the communion refers to His suffering. That's our next point. The cup of the communion refers to His suffering. The drink they drank back then symbolized the blood that was shed, that Jesus was to shed on the behalf of people. Let's look at that in Matthew 26. Matthew 26, starting in verse 26. Let's read that. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it. This is when they were having their Passover meal before Jesus was crucified. And He gave it to the disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And He took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. When He gave them the bread and the fruit of the vine, the grape juice, He was showing them this is a symbol. When you partake of this bread, remember my body that's being given. When you drink this cup, this fruit of the vine, remember the blood that is shed for the remission of sins. And we, as Christians, continue to do that very thing. Every first day of the week when we gather together, as the first century Christians did, as we read in the book of Acts, you can look at Acts chapter 20, verse 7, when they gathered together on the first day of the week to break bread. They came to break this bread and remember His body. They came to partake of the fruit of the vine and remember His blood. And that's what we need to do. It's a symbol of the suffering that Jesus went to. You may not have thought about it that way, but every Lord's Day we come together to remember Jesus as the model sufferer. And perhaps we could read John 18 sometimes to remind ourselves of what we're doing as we partake of the Lord's Supper. We might remind ourselves in the congregations by looking in John 18 and seeing Jesus saying those words, Shall I not drink of the cup of suffering that the Father is giving me? He's the model sufferer. And we remember the body and the blood that was shed on our behalf. Let's look at a few other verses in John 19. Let's look at verses 1 and 2. John 19, 1 and 2. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged Him. That means He was beaten. And the soldiers platted a crown of thorns and put it on His head, and they put on Him a purple robe. And skipping down to verses 17 and 18, He, bearing His cross, went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified Him, and two other with Him, on either side one, and Jesus in the midst. And then verse 34, But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced His side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. This is the suffering that Jesus had to go through. The scourging, they would beat Him, they would whip Him, they would hit Him, put a crown of thorns upon Him, they would make Him carry a cross, they would nail Him to the cross. And even after He went through all that and died, He was then pierced in the side with a spear. Jesus is the model sufferer. But that was then, and of course this is now. What do we need to remember? What do we need to learn? And how does it apply to us in today's life? Well, our final point is we must drink of that cup of suffering too in order to follow Jesus. We must drink of the cup of suffering in order to follow Jesus. Look with me in the book of Luke, chapter 9. Let's read verse 23. Luke chapter 9, verse 23. Jesus said to them all, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." A cross is a symbol of pain and suffering. Jesus says, you want to follow me? And we've talked about following Jesus in previous lessons, including the Good Shepherd, Jesus as the Good Shepherd and leading his sheep. If we want to follow him, we have to be willing to take up that cross. Now, that cross can come in different forms. For some people in this world, unfortunately, it may mean death. It may mean that if you're a Christian, you could suffer death. There are countries in this world that practice other religions. And those other religions don't teach you to pray for your enemies. They teach you to kill your enemies. And when you believe in a different religion like Christianity, they consider you your enemy. Or they consider you their enemy, rather. There are places in the world where if you profess Christianity, it may cost you your life. Maybe not on a cross, but maybe with a bullet or an explosion or just with the sword. But the cross can come in other forms too. I've already mentioned about being, ridiculed. Some people may make fun of you, scoff at you if you say you're a Christian. If you start talking about the God in the Bible, they may roll their eyes and say, oh, you're one of those religious zealots and crazy people. The cross can come in all sorts of forms. Family disowning you. But the point is, Jesus says, you have to be willing to take up that cross daily. In other words, Christianity is not a Sunday only kind of thing, is it? We can see here that you want to be a Christian, you got to act like a Christian every day. You got to try and behave like a Christian every day. You got to take up that cross daily. And that means be willing, if necessary, to suffer on behalf of Jesus and the cross. In John chapter 16, let's read verse 33. John chapter 16 and verse 33. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Jesus knew that something better was coming. That's why he endured the cross and despised the shame. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. For the joy that was set before him, he knew that something joyous was coming after that. So that's why he was willing to go through it. That and the fact that it was the will of the Father and he wanted to do what was right. We too can remember the same thing. We could have a joy that is set before us that will make any suffering we go through here on this earth seem like nothing. We'll forget about that suffering when you're in heaven, because heaven will be so wonderful and glorious, you'll say, I don't really care about that suffering anymore. It was worth it. Did you ever go through something that was really hard, but when you got through it, you got to a better place and it was worth it? Maybe you suffered addiction and you had to struggle through withdrawal and all sorts of things, but once you got through it, you got your life back and it felt so wonderful and so free. Maybe you had to suffer through a loss in your family, or you get the point of what I'm trying to say. There's all kinds of things that you may have to endure and go through. But when you get through it on the other side, it feels so much better. If you have to endure something hard, there is that silver lining, if you will, on the gray cloud. And when we look at this earth anyway, the overall picture, and I'm talking the big picture, we're going to go through lots of suffering here on this earth, and some of it may be because we're Christians. But in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, one day this earth will be gone. We'll be gone off the earth, and what comes after that? Heaven would be so much more glorious, and it'll be worth it all, and it will make all these problems disappear. Jesus knew that, and we need to understand that too. Look at John 15:18 through 20 with me. John 15:18 through 20. This is an important thing to remember. Jesus is the model sufferer, and we need to look to him for inspiration and courage when we have to suffer too. Jesus said, if the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. That's what we saw in John 15:18. And remember the word that I said to you in John 15:20. The servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. Do you see that? If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. Jesus is letting us know they've persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. We can expect suffering as a Christian. We can expect it. But Jesus said, remember me. They did it to me, they're going to do it to you. But now, once again, to remind you, let's look at Hebrews 12:2. Hebrews 12:2. Looking unto Jesus. So where should we look when we suffer? Jesus said they made me suffer, they're going to make you suffer. So where should we look? Where should we look to? Where should we try to get encouragement and inspiration? Here's the answer. We look to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Jesus authored that faith and he finished it. He's going to finish it for us by taking us home to heaven if we're faithful to him. And why do we look to Jesus? Because he looked for the joy that was set before him. And that's how he was able to endure the cross and despise the shame. And look at the end result. He sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Wasn't it worth it? It was worth it. Is it going to be worth it for you? Is it going to be worth it for me? Oh, absolutely it'll be worth it. We just have to be willing to take that cup from Jesus and say, I'm willing to drink it. I'm willing to drink the cup of suffering if it means fulfilling the will of the Father, just like Jesus did. I hope that you'll take courage and look at Jesus as the example of the model sufferer so that you can take up your cross daily and follow him and let nothing on earth stop you from reaching heaven.
If you would like to learn more about God's Word with a free Bible correspondence course, then write us at Truth for the World, P.O. Box 5048, Duluth, Georgia, 30096, the United States of America, or visit us online at truthfortheworld.org.
Ye servants of God, your Master proclaim, and publish abroad his wonderful name, the name all victorious of Jesus.